The materials for this shape vortex project are a colored and white piece of paper, a ruler, a black writing utensil, scissors, glue, eraser, and some kind of coloring materials. Start with your white paper and draw a dot somewhere in the middle of your paper. That is our 1-point perspective. That is the end of our vortex, and all of the shapes are going to come out of that point. Now, around that point, begin drawing shapes that have straight sides and corners. For this one, we are not drawing circles or anything with curved sides. We want to see those clearly defined corners. It will help us later on. You can draw triangles, you can draw rectangles, squares, trapezoids, rhombus or diamonds, but make sure that your shapes have corners. I'm drawing them around the point, but some are closer, some are farther away, some are in front of other ones. Make sure they're big and they fill your space. I would say anywhere from 6 to 7 or 8 shapes. Next, with a pencil, just go around all of your shapes and mark your corners. Mark your vertices, the corners of all of your shapes. This is just to remind us that these are the places we need to line up with that middle point. Now, here's where we need to work slowly and very, very carefully. With a ruler, find the closest shape to that middle point and line up one of your dots that you made with that front center dot. Draw a straight line connecting them. Find the next corner and line it up with that middle dot. If you do not line it up with that middle dot, it will get very messy very quickly. So I'm working slow. I have not fast forwarded this part of the video. And when all 3 of my corners have been connected, it's now looking like that triangle is popping out of that center point. Find the next closest shape and line up your first corner with that point. Draw your line. Here's my next one. I'm lining it up, drawing my line. Now, watch what happens. When I try to do this back line, I'm going to go through my shape, and I don't want to do that. So I'm actually not drawing that line. So this is where you have to start thinking about if it's the front of my shape, that line would go through it, and you can't see it. So for that rectangle, I actually only see 2 lines because the other ones are hidden behind the shape. All right, here's this one, my first line I drew. My second one, it's clear, there's nothing in front of it, there's nothing blocking it from reaching that point, so I can draw it. This one though, it would go through the shape, so I don't draw that line for the back corner. The one on the side, clear, I can draw it. So you can see some have 3 sides visible and some only have 2. That just depends on the way you drew your shapes, which direction. For this square, I can just barely make that line. It's really close to the triangle, so that's why you have to make sure your lines are really super neat. You guys can already tell, oh, that's going to go through the shape. I'm not drawing it. Same thing, not drawing it. All right, now for this one, watch what happens. When I line it up, it's a clear shot until I hit the shape below it. So I'm only drawing my line until I hit that other shape. We can see now that the triangle comes in front of the lines for that rectangle or square. Well, they're not perfectly even. I don't know. I think that's more of a, I don't know, polygon. Look at this triangle. Because of the direction I drew it, unlike my other triangle, which has all three corners connected, that one, we can already tell, is not going to be able to see the point for the final one. Line it up, and then when you get to that shape, stop. That trapezoid is behind the rectangle. Oops, I forgot a corner. When all of your shapes have their lines, you can go back over them with your black marker. Make it the finest tipped marker you can. If you don't have a fine tipped marker, use a pen or anything. I would not use a Crayola marker right now. It's not thin enough and it will be really, really hard to keep your lines even. You can use a ruler, but my ruler started smudging. So if you're going to use a ruler, you have to either go slow and wait for it to dry or get a tissue that you can wipe off the sides in between each use. It just depends on what you want. If you feel comfortable making straight lines without a ruler, following your pencil, you can try that as well. But we need it to be super neat. Time to color. To start, I will be coloring in the face of all of my shapes, so those first shapes that we drew, with markers. I'm using markers because I want a really bold shape that's going to be dark and stand out. I'm using random colors, but you can use a pattern if you'd like. You could go around in a rainbow. It just depends on what you want to do. To color in the vortex part of my shape drawing, I'll use crayons. I like crayons for this part because I can get different values, which will in turn make my drawing more interesting and make it look like there is movement happening. The first thing I'm going to do is find a similar crayon for each shape. So my orange crayon is being used with my orange trapezoid. And I'm coloring in the entire three sides very lightly. Once my sides are colored in light, I'm going back in towards the middle and darkening half of the vortex. So here's my pink. I'm going in very light to start. And I'm also making sure to color so that my shapes, my crayon, is moving in the same direction as the shapes are out of that point. You can see it's darker near the middle. I just noticed there's a section of pencil still showing, so if you see something, be sure to erase it before you color it. Once you put the crayon down, it's really hard to erase it without it getting smudgy and kind of gross. So that's just being aware of your work and making sure you're doing the best work possible. All right, I'm going to keep going around, matching my crayons, coloring light at first, and then going back and adding a darker value towards the middle. After you color, it's time to cut out your drawing. Now, this is going to require you to be very, very careful because we don't want to cut through the middle and break our piece. Although, if you did that, you can always glue them so that they look like they're connected. So don't freak out if you do cut through it. I like to cut by breaking up the shapes and getting rid of larger sections around the outside first. So you see I'm just kind of tearing if I don't have to save that paper. I don't want it hanging around next to me getting in my way. And for a lot of these, I'm leaving little sections of that white paper in the middle because that's actually making sure my page stays strong and it's not gonna break on me as I move it around. Sometimes it's best to go around first, get rid of any big pieces of white paper that you don't need, and then go back later cutting through. Some of them I cut all the way. It just depends on how you're feeling, how confident you're feeling. If you think it might be too difficult to start, get rid of all the big sections first. So now I'm going back through to get these sections cut. And all I'm doing is cutting along that line, both lines. And then I like to pinch in the middle and pull it out. That's only when I know I've cut really, really close, but I don't want to cut through. So instead of cutting too much, I cut it and then I pinch in the middle and pull. This only works if you're very close already to where you've cut. So if there's a big gap, it won't work. Pinch, pull. All right, this last little tiny one. When you're done cutting, you're almost done. The only thing left to do is take your colored piece of paper for a background and glue your shape vortex to it. So when I glue, the one tip I'll give you is to hold a finger in the middle point and work your glue stick from the middle outward. So I'm holding it down in the middle. That way it just is a little extra support because that area is a little bit delicate. Hold it down in the middle first, and then just smooth all your pieces so that they're extending away from your one point. Ta-da! Your one-point perspective shape vortex.